This is Vimo Air, and this is a built-in hand PC mouse trackpad. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look on how to assemble Vimo Air. On the next video that I will upload to YouTube channel, I will show how to set up and install the firmware of Vimo Air PC trackpad. So let's start with the video. Alright, so first of all, here we have all the components needed to build Vimo Air. So here we can see some 3D printed components, and also we can see some hardware components that you will need to buy and purchase. There's a BOM inside Vimo Air's crowdfunding campaign. So that said, let's take a look to everything. So let's leave apart the 3D printed components, as these ones are not that much important. We will take a look deeper into them later as we are on the assembly. But let's take a look to the components that we need to buy. So the first of all, this is the Circuit trackpad. Exactly, this model is called, let me read it for you, is the Circuit TM040040 40mm trackpad. So you can get this Circuit trackpad at Mouser Electronics. Some of you have been asking about if this can arrive to USA. And the thing is that I'm not sure if they are shipping this to USA, but if you are interested into this project and Mouser Electronics don't ship to USA, which I think they do, but in case that they don't ship to you, I'm open to try different trackpads for this project. But the main thing is that it needs to be 40mm in diameter, and it needs to have a 12-pin 0.5 pitch connector. This is very important. Remember, all the links will be into Vimo Air's crowdfunding campaign. And so this is going to be the thing that we are going to be using with our thumb. It's just a simple trackpad with a rounded shape, so nothing strange on this one. So all the things that we will need. This is a very important one. Everything is connected in, because I'm not going to be going through the whole process of iron soldering the components. And in fact, these are the only things that will need iron soldering. So the next component is the Seed Studio XIAO NRF 52840 cents. Yeah, very simple name, right? So this is the main motherboard of Vimo Air. You can get this one for around 30 euros or so, and it's very important that it must be the Sense model, or also known as NRF 52840. You need to get this bundle because this one has built-in gyroscope and accelerometer, which is going to be helpful for the gestures of Vimo Air. So another thing that we will need is some cables. We will take a look to that later. Another important thing is the on-off switch. Again, there's a link to this one, just so you purchase the right on-off switch and you don't get any problems. Also, another thing about the Seed Studio, you can get this one with already pre-soldered GPIO connectors, or you can purchase for less price without the GPIO pins already soldered. So this is on you. I will highly recommend, if you don't have any experience with iron soldering, I will highly recommend to purchase one with the GPIO connectors already pre-soldered. So another thing, important thing with the on-off switch, I need to measure this for you, but again, everything is specified into the Vimo Air crowdfunding campaign. And so it's very important when you get into the link to purchase this on-off switch, you will need to select the length of this leg. And just so we can see what's the length of this leg, is 6.97, 7mm length leg. This is very important. As said, when you get into the link, there will be different leg lengths of the on-off switch. So remember, 7mm is the one that you need to take. So another important component is the battery. This is a 500 mAh battery. Again, there's a link for the exact battery with these exact spec sizes, but just so you can see it, this one has a height of 5.63mm, 5.63. The width is around 9.8, 20mm, and the length, there it is, 40mm average. So very important that you get this exact same battery. The only size where you can go bigger is about the height. You can even go maybe 1 or 2 millimeters higher in case that you want a 700 mAh battery. Here you can see the reference, but again, there are links for this battery also on Vimo Air crowdfunding campaign. So this later on onto the connections of these ones, let's take a look to more components. The other one that we will need is this cable. This is an FFC FPC 12-pin 0.5 pitch cable, and the length of this one is around 180, I think. Let me check it for you. I think this one is, yeah, this one is on 200 millimeters or so. One important thing, as you can see, if we stretch the cable, on one side the pins are looking up, facing up, and the other side the pins are facing down. Again, this is very important because if you choose a cable where the pins face up on both sides, the connections will be different and you will need to change the rotation of the cable. So again, this is very important. Take this one with one side of pins up and the other side the pins facing down. Alright, so one more we need for Vimo Air. These are DuPont female to female connectors or cables. So these cables will be connecting the Seat Studio XIAO. These will be connected into this motherboard, and also these ones will be connected with this older component, which we are going to be taking a look later. So as said, these are the cables that you will need. The exact size or length of these ones is 113 millimeters average, 115. So you don't need longer cables in this case. In fact, the shorter the cables for this purpose, the better, because the space inside Vimo Air is quite tight. So I will highly suggest to go into this length, or maybe 10-20 millimeters less of length. But these ones, to me, work good. And for this one, we are gonna be needing 7 cables, different colors, just so you don't misconnect anything. But you can choose any color you want, of course. Now, one more things we need are these M2 self-insert, which are bolts for plastic components, for plastic parts. And on one side, we are gonna be needing the 6mm and 8mm bolts. The shorter ones that we are gonna be using in this project are the 6mm, and the longer ones are 8mm bolts. Again, both of them are M2 bolts. Of course, we're going to be needing a screwdriver for these ones. And I think that there are no more hardware parts that I need to show. No, that's all. So the next components are the ones that are 3D printed. In this case is a Filaflex foamy TPU hand strap. You can use TPU 95. You can even use, in this case, TPU for AMI AMS. You can even use PLA. I have been testing and you can use PLA, no problem, but it's going to be less comfortable. So I will highly suggest to go into a TPU filament for this. Here we have the base of Vimo Air. Also we have the front and rear covers right here and right here. We are going to have some small components to attach the batteries and the Seat Studio motherboard. This is where the trackpad goes, and these are some of the few elements to give it a bit more of a style to Vimo Air. And this is the on-off switch. We are going to be taking a look to all these components together while we are making the assembly. Alright, so let's start with the assembly of Vimo Air. So the first thing that we need to do is to make these connections. We will need some cables to make these ones and an iron soldering. I'm gonna be showing this whole process because I think it's boring. You already know how this thing goes. But one important thing is how you place the black and red cable for the Seat Studio motherboard. So this motherboard has 2 pads. The one taking a reference, the Type-C connector, the one on the right, it is the negative, and the one on the left is the positive. It's very important that when you are iron soldering these 2 cables, you don't mix the 2 pads with the iron soldering, because then there's going to be a short circuit and you're going to have some problems with the battery. So take care when you are iron soldering these 2 pads, and the direction of the cables must be this way, as you can see, facing up and not facing down. This is also very important. I have also applied some bit of hot glue silicone just to protect the connections and avoid any problems with stretching the cables. And as you can see here, let's separate everything. So the red pad or the positive pad goes directly into the battery connector. Here you can see that I have used, this is the OEM cable of the battery, and this is the cable that I have iron soldered to the positive pad and to the positive of the battery. And here you can see that there's a heatsink. I don't know if it's called that way, but you will need to place together these two cables and place a heatsink or some other thing to protect it. So this one goes directly to the battery. The positive goes directly to the battery. But on the other side, the negative cable, as you can see, it goes to the on-off switch. So the negative of the SID Studio goes to the middle one, the middle connector of the on-off switch. And on the other side, the negative of the battery goes directly to the battery, and this one goes to the right one. So again, this is very important. I mean, it's not ultra important, but this will change if this position is on or off. So that's the only thing that matters. So as said, very important if you want to keep things simple and don't make things complicated. Negative of the SID Studio to the middle of the on-off switch, and negative of the battery goes to the right of the on-off switch if we are looking at it from this position. All right? So another thing that some of you may ask, which is what's the total length of the cables? So let's measure that just so you get the right size and length. So the positive of the battery has an average length of around 105 millimeters. So 10 centimeters, 10.5 centimeters total length for the red cable from battery to SID Studio. Now, the negative that goes into the SID Studio to the on-off switch has an average length. This is, by the way, this is, I haven't said that, but this is 24 AWG cables, these ones. The ones that are not from the battery, as you can see, those are thinner, but I like to use these ones because they have some silicone protection and they make soft to the touch, and also they are very easy to handle. So as said, the cable that goes into the SID Studio into the middle of the on-off switch has an overall length of, this cable has a length of 53.3 millimeters average. And the one that goes into the right pin of the on-off switch directly to the battery. All right, let's stretch it there. It has an average size of 136 millimeters, 136 millimeters, 0.8. Again, these are average sizes. You can go a little bit more, a little bit less. I will highly recommend to go into higher length than less. So those are the cables used. As said, this is the wiring diagram of these components, and these are the only things that you will need to iron soldering. The rest of the components are plug and play. So this is very simple, and as said, I will highly recommend to purchase this thing with already pre-soldered GPIO connectors if you want to save some time. Now, how can we start with the rest of the components? So the first thing that we need to do is to place the SID Studio in this position with these cables facing up. Get these as a reference. And I'm going to be starting to place the first GPIO cables, DuPont female cables. And as said, place the motherboard in this way so you can get a reference. So let me show you that here I have the connections of the SID Studio. So as you can see, we have it in this position right here, and we're going to be starting with the down row of cables, with the lower row of cables. We are going to be starting with these ones, and later we will need to install the top ones. So just so you can see, we have empty the left and right GPIO pins, and we're going to be using only the ones in the center. So let's start plugging the cables with this wiring diagram. So the first one is the green cable. In this case, as I said, you can use any other color, but remember to match the connections the same way. So the first one, I'm gonna be using the orange cable right here. Remember, you skip the first one. The next cable is the yellow one. The next one, I'm gonna be using purple. Next one is white. And the final one is the green cable. Now, there it is. There we have our first connections to the Seed Studio. Now, the next thing that we need to do is to directly install the Seed Studio motherboard into Vimo Air's chassis. But previous to place all those cables and the Seed Studio into the chassis of Vimo Air, we will need to place this component right here. This is the one that is going to be fixing in place the Seed Studio. So we need to place all these cables through this right here, just like that. And this component owns in place something like this. So this is how it looks like. And now that we have installed that component, we can place the Seed Studio into the chassis of Vimo Air. But first of all, we need to place, as said, all these cables through the tunnel of this part of Vimo Air. So place them in there. Don't stretch them too much so we don't damage any connector. And there it is. So here we have all those cables right there. Okay, right there. And now gently we stretch them out and we place the Seed Studio into position. We place the cables down that small tab. We need to take a bit out the Seed Studio. We need to place more in this component, just like that. And we need to slide it behind this small pillar. And now all we need to do is to place down this right there and right there. Okay, this is a little bit tilt. We need to place it properly in position. And there it is. Now it is the part that fixes the Seed Studio into Vimo Air chassis. Now, as you can see, it's in position. And we are going to be taking the first 2 bolts. We are going to be taking the 6mm bolts. These are the shorter ones that we are using for this project. And we need to place the bolt right there into that position. That first one, we tied it. There it is. That's the first bolt. And now the other bolt that goes right there. Again, a 6mm bolt. We slide it under that tunnel and place it there. And there it is. Now we have the Seed Studio fixed in position and not moving at all. So now the next thing that we need to do is to place the other 2 cables left on the Seed Studio. So here you can see the wiring diagram. This is the top part of the Seed Studio. Right now here you can see that it's like that. It's placed and showed the same way. So we need to place the black cable and the brown cable. As you can see on the right, using the Type-C as a reference, we have 2 empty GPIO connectors, and the next one going to the left is a black one and the other one is a brown. So we pass the cable under that tunnel right there. There it is, as you can see. And now the brown cable, which is the next one. Again, we place it down that tunnel. We try to place it in and push it with anything that you have in hand. There it is. Now we have our two cables. We have the black one on the right and the left, and on the left side we have the brown cable. Remember, 2 empty GPIO pins on the right, and we have 3 empty GPIO pins on the left, looking the City Studio from the top. Alright, so now we have all these cables right there. And the next step, if you want, is to fix in position the battery. So all we need to do is slide it in there, as you can see. And all we need to do now is to use 6mm bolts, again with these small tabs, to fix the battery in position. So the first thing that we need to do is to take one small tab and place it in one of those pillars. But previous to that, I will highly recommend to take the small bolts, place a bit the tip of the bolt into the top part of the small tab, just like that, until you see the tip coming out, just like that. Place the tab into that pillar, and while that, tight the bolt into position until you feel it's not going anymore. There we have one tab, and now the other one. Again, we take another small bolt, the 6mm bolt, place the tip inside until it shows that, and now on the other pillar, in the other side, in that one right there. So we place it there and tight it all the way till the end. Just like that. There we have. There we have the battery in position. Test that nothing moves and everything stays in position. Now the next thing that we need to do, we're going to take out the on-off switch, and we have here all these cables right there. But previous to placing all these cables into the FFC FPC board, which by the way I previously didn't explain how this board works, but basically the GPIO pins connect to this board, and then the FFC FPC cable, that one right there, connects to this board too. So let's place the cables into the right position. Again, we're going to be taking a look to the wiring diagram of the colors. So we will need now to go right there. This is the FFC FPC conversion board, looking from the top, something like that. And let's take a look to the wiring diagrams. Again, this is very important, so don't confuse anything. So, first of all, we have the yellow and orange cable on the right side. So we're going to be taking the yellow cable into the lower right GPIO pin connector, like that, and the green one into the top, just like that. And now if we look again into the wiring diagram, so here you can see we have green, black, purple, white and brown. Again, you can use any color, but if you use these ones, this is going to be easier to you to set up everything. The purple one goes into this GPIO pin, which by the way there are numbers right onto the FFC FPC board. So in this case, the purple one goes into the number 8, so it's right there. Then the black one goes next to it to the left, like that. And then we have the green one, which goes all the way to the left on the top row, like that. Now, under these GPIO pins, we have the brown and white cables. So, starting from all the way to the left, we have the left cable that goes right there, the white one, and next to it, to the right, we have the brown cable. There it is. Now we have connected the FFC FPC board to the Seed Studio. Now the next thing that we need to do is to plug in the flex cable before we place the board into its own position. So to make that, here we have the cable. You can take any end that you want. And one important thing, if you are using the same cable as I am using, which is this one where as you can see, if I stretch it, one side the pins look up and the other side the pins look down. So the pins, no matter which side you choose, the pins that right there needs to look down, facing into the board of the FFC FPC board. So we need to place up that connector right there, place all the way in the flex cable gently, and once it's in, place down that small tab right there. Remember to align it and be sure that there's no movement or that it's tilted or anything like that. Remember, on this side the pins face down. The pins of this flex cable face down into the board. If you place it wrong, then there's going to be another pattern for the cables and it's going to be way more harder to assemble everything. So now that we have that cable there, it comes now a quite tricky part, because we need to place all these cables and slide them inside there all the way in here, but avoiding that the cables hide the Type-C connector. So again, this is a quite tricky thing. You can even maybe rotate them so we have all them right there. And this, as said, is going to be quite a tricky thing. Once you have the cables something like that, you can pull them a little bit so we have enough space in there, because in there we need space for all these GPIO connectors. So this board must face down. We need to slide it something like that right there. Take care so you don't make too much pressure into the flex cable. Take care with that one. And as said, gently slide the FFC FPC board slightly in and slowly pull up the flex cable so it don't hit with this pillar right there, just in case, and try to place everything in there, something like that. Try to pull from the cables too. As said, this is quite a tricky part, and that's why if you take shorter cables, it's not gonna be a bad thing. It can help you even. Okay, I think it looks okay. Everything looks good. Press down the FFC FPC board until it aligns with that hole for the bolt. So let's place another 6mm, the shorter bolt, and let's tight this FFC FPC board into the chassis like that. There it is. Okay, so everything looks okay. Check the wirings and the connections so nothing has moved and everything is in place. And now what we need to do, as you can see, the FPC cable goes there, and we need to place all those cables and displace them through here, so they don't get in the middle of the way of the Type-C connector. Alright, so gently let's place all those here like that, and there it is. So there, as you can see, we have enough space for the Type-C connector. Now you can see that it's accessible in a straight way, so no matter if no problem if the cables are there, because then the cover by itself will place out these cables so they don't get into the way of the Type-C connector. Right, so now we have everything there. Now we can go with the final step inside Vimo Air chassis, which is to place the on-off switch. So we need to slide the on-off switch right there, but we need to pass it through that tunnel. So again, gently place it there, and there it is. There we have our on-off switch. Again, we take another 6mm short M2 bolt and we tighten it there. Remember that depending on how you place the switch, on will be on one side or another, so that's also very important. But one thing you could do is to turn on this and check if there's any lights turning on into the seat studio board. So I'm gonna place out a bit these cables just so you can see if there's any light turning on. So let's see if I can show that. Okay, I'm gonna be turning on this. So I don't know if you can see, there's an LED right there, a blue LED. That means that this is on and that is off. So that means that the battery and everything, it's okay. So now let's place this flex cable through this tunnel right there. Just like that. There it is. And now what we can do is to place these cables, these battery cables right there. Don't flex them too much so there's enough space. Alright, something like that could be okay. Not the beautiest setup on the cables, but this could be enough. Now let's start with this next step, which is with installing the flex cable and the telescopic trackpad of Vimo Air. So the next step is to take this cable and take this component right here and slide it in there until it goes out through the other side. All you need to do is to push there and the cable should go out. Or you can place this cable at first inside the tube through the other side. It's gonna make things easier too, but there we have it. So here we have the cable through that tube. And now the next thing is to place this other component, pass the cable through that tunnel right there, like that. And now you can place inside there the 3D printed part where the trackpad goes. So you need to just make a little bit of force, and there it goes. Now it goes in. It's a little bit loose because we still need to place some bolts in there. Now let's install this, the flex cable into the circuit trackpad. And as you can see, there we have the pins. On the other side there's nothing. Very important here, the pins on this connector look outside the circumference. So something like that. And we need to place it just like that. Here it is. Remember, the pins look to the outside in this case. And now the good thing is that everything has been designed in a way where the circuit trackpad fits in there like a plug and play component. So just align it, ensure that the FFC cable is all the way to the outside, right where the tunnel is, and all you need to do now is press, and there it is. Now we have the trackpad in there. Now that we have these components, what we need to do is to slide. But previously I want to check if the cable is okay. Yeah, the cable is okay in that position. Alright, now what we need to do is to retract the cable a bit until this component is right there, inside there. There it is. Now don't worry if this goes a little bit loose or out. Later we can flex it with no problem. So now the next step, as you can see here, I have already made some marks just to adapt it to my finger. So we need to place in a comfortable position, even though later we can adjust it. But we can place it, for example, like this. And now we will need to use the 8mm bolts that goes in there and tighten it. As said, later we can move everything and adjust it in a better way. But I think that's gonna be the right position for me. There it is, all the way in. And now as you can see, the tube is not moving, but this part, it's still moving. So what we need to do is to place another 8mm bolts, one in here and the other one in there. So this component don't move and tilt. But again, you can place these. Oh, it wasn't inside, all the way in. Now it's all the way in. So as I said, you can move everything and adjust it later. But first of all, we need to place all the bolts. And in fact, these are the final bolts for this build. So one on that side, all the way in. There it is, one. And now another one on the other side. It's the same, another 8mm bolts. Remember that the 8mm bolts will be used for the outside components, and the shorter bolts are used on the inner components of Vimo Air. So there it is. A little bit more. All right. So now nothing is moving. Perfect. As said, now that we have the bolts in there, we can adjust everything slowly and gently. You can move everything to adjust the length or even the rotation of it. You will need to make some force, but now you can adjust even also the length. Everything can be adjusted just so you feel comfortable with your thumb finger. Alright, so now let's place all the covers. Let's place this flex cable in there. Yeah, we can place it there, for example. No problem. Alright, so this is the on-off switch that goes right there. As you can see, if we look at here from the top, as you can see, there's one side that goes more backwards and the other one goes more to the front. So the one that goes more to the backwards faces to the left. just like that. Now we need to install the covers. I'm gonna place this less flexed, just in case. Maybe like that, and like that, maybe. Well, this is gonna hide later with the covers. So here we have two parts, as you can see. So these two parts, these longer ones, because we have another parts, these shorter ones, these ones goes to the front, and the other ones, these two goes to the rear. So as you can see, they have been printed on these two faces, so they go all the way together. And when you have them together, they look something like this. So now with all these two parts there, all we need to do is to plug and play, install them into the rear side of Vimo Air. So something like that. We need to take care with the cables and everything. There it is. Align the connector and press all the way in. There it is. And now they are in place. Remember that this is off. In this case, this is on. We should again, there you can see it's beeping, and this is off. So there we have the rear covers, and now let's install the front covers. So first it goes this part, this component, and later this one that has the hole for the Type-C. Sorry, first it goes this one. So to place this one, we need to pull first that side, right there, and press all the way in, like that. And as you can see, let me make it better for you, there it is. If you can see the Type-C connector perfectly with no problem, every single edge, then everything has been installed and it's good. And now the final part, which is this one. So we place that small latch first. Okay, this is again a quite tricky one. And then it goes that small latch right there, down there. And there it is. Now we have installed the front covers of Vimo Air. And the final touch, which is this component. It's not needed, but this is to give it a little bit of more style, and also so you can take it from here. This one is easy, just like that. Press all the way in, and then the other side, press all the way in. If you want to use some super glue to have it more fixed in place, you can do it. And there it is. Here we have Vimo Air fully assembled. But there's one final thing, which is the hand strap, the 3D printed hand strap. So this one goes like this. There's a small notch, that's to adjust the length, and this goes like this. So first it goes in there like that, and then adjust it into the position that you like the most. In my case, it's that position. So there it is. And now how this goes, as you can see on the parts, there's a small notch on the front side that goes in there first. So as you can see, like that, we place it there into those holes and slide it until you'll feel like some kind of a click. And the next one goes the same way. Slide it all the way in. There it is. And there we have Vimo Air fully assembled. Just so we can take a better look, we have our stand of Vimo Air. Here you can see build Vimo Air inside my hand. I can reach perfectly. Maybe I should lower a bit the trackpad to reach to the top. But as I said, you can make that however you want. So feel the most comfortable position, because now you will need to get ready for the next video, which is how to set up the firmware of Vimo Air and how to change all the settings that we have available into Vimo options for Windows and for macOS. But as said, that's for the next video.